Welcome back to our Meet the Lender series. We're excited today to learn a little bit more about CDC Small Business Finance, and we're happy to have Miriam on today. So Miriam, if you could please introduce yourself, your background, and your organization as well.
Absolutely. My name is Miriam, and I am at CDC Small Business Finance, and we have been around for 40 plus years. And we're mission based, we're an alternative lender, and our goal is really to be able to provide funding and capital for small business owners that have some sort of barrier. If, for example, their business is located in a low or moderate income area, if they're a veteran, if they're African American, Hispanic, that's our mission, is to help those types of clients. But also just any small business owner that isn't able to yet quite be what's called bankable in parentheses. If they can't get a small business loan because they're a startup or many other reasons, then that's also our mission at CDC. And I've actually been in the industry for 16 plus years in finance in one way or another, whether it was helping people with their investments or helping people with their home mortgage. I fell into the small business arena kind of later in my career, and I absolutely love it. I definitely knew that I found, my passion. I love helping small business owners. I think I'm a little bit of like a hidden entrepreneur myself. And so I get really excited when people are willing to take that risk to start their own business. And, in my 16 years of my career, I've learned a lot. So whatever I can do to give them my knowledge about credit or how to get approved, or what's a good fit for them, or help them, build some sort of a roadmap with somebody like SBDC, then I'm happy to do that. So that's a little bit about me and CDC.
Well, that's great. I mean, you answered a good portion of my next question too, which is fantastic. You can go into a bit more detail on that too, which is, why are you, Miriam, in small business lending? I mean, you talked a little bit about your passion there, but what, maybe it's something like, what is a good reward you get from yourself for working with a small business owner?
Well, this kind of reminds me actually of why, I love helping small business clients. And I mean, it reminds me of the story of myself when the first time that I went to purchase a home. I worked at a large bank, I applied and it was a no. And it was a no without an answer or any sort of direction. It was just like, you're not approved. And it was somewhat of a frustrating situation. And I see that happen to a lot of small business owners. And I, reached out and tried to connect with people and find other avenues. And I did actually sit down with a gentleman for just, a home mortgage loan officer for just 30 minutes. And after that conversation, I knew, steps 1 through 5, what I needed to do to purchase a home. And I did steps 1 through 5, and I came back in 6 months and purchased my first home. And so I can tell you countless of stories how I have tried to impact small business owners in the same way. So, what I love about small business owners is they're resilient, and I'm pretty resilient myself. So I think maybe in that way I can connect with them. But when they're trying to get to their goal of starting their business or growing their business or keeping their business alive, I am there to help them, and I relate to them in that way where I'm not going to be the person that just says no. Even actually, if CDC is not the right fit for them, I'm still not going to be the person that just says no. I'm going to send them to SBDC. I'm going to send them maybe to another lender that's a better match for them. I'm going to do both. I mean, I'm really going to try to help them, have steps, at least the first couple of steps, and then hopefully you guys can complete the process for them. But yeah, I really want to provide guidance, and that's why I have a passion. Is I want to help people get to their goal. When you are helping a small business owner, it makes a lot of impact. It makes impact in their own family. It makes impact with all of their employees. It makes impact in our community. So that's why I love small business lending.
Well, that's great. So we're going to get a little bit more into a little bit of the nuts and bolts of CDC and what you do for the next couple of questions here to pivot a bit. So what types of small business, you talked a little bit about this in terms of it, but really what ones best fit your lending products? I mean, do you work with startups? Is it the service industry, construction, those types of things? There's always kind of a wheelhouse for each lender, and really what's CDC's wheelhouse?
Yeah, so our wheelhouse really is, as I mentioned before, trying to lend to people that are not quite right bankable. So that could be because they are a startup, because, if you go to a traditional bank, they want you to have 2 to 3 years of sales revenue that's going up and net income that's going up. And sure, that happens, but, what happens to those small business owners that just have an idea and they have their business plan and their projections, and those are the kind of people that we help, and we network with people like you at SBDC. um, and 50% of our portfolio at CDC is actually startup businesses. So that would be anybody from, hey, I want to open my business next month or in the next 2 months, to anybody who doesn't have their first year of tax returns. So we help anywhere in that process. So that's what we consider a startup. Once you have your first year of tax returns, you're still pretty new as well. So we're still willing to help you. As long as you can prove that you can pay us back. Our cash flow ratios are much lower than a traditional bank. So, also if there's a small business owner that wants to acquire a new business, whether it be a franchise or an existing business like a mom pop kind of shop, we help with that as well. So, also debt refinance in this, as long as it's for a small business debt, then we're willing to do that as well. So that's kind of what we call our different use of proceeds, or are the different reasons, and what we can do to help small business owners.
Well, that's great. So to get into even a bit more detail, so now it's a small business that's ready to apply. What is kind of the lending application process, and then also the eventual underwriting process from CDC Small Business Finance?
So the process is kind of simple. I like to most definitely, like, if one of your financial advisors at SBDC sends me a referral, I definitely want to have a conversation with that client. The last thing I want to do is, just say, here's a link or here's the application, and not talk to the client. Even as a referral, I want to make sure to give that client, a really good experience. And just by having like a 20 or 15-minute conversation, I can ask some detailed questions to see if the client is a good candidate for CDC Small Business Loan Finance. If they're not, I don't want to pull their credit. I don't want to waste their time. So the first step is me taking 15 to 20 minutes and chatting with the client and seeing if they're a good fit for us. The second step, if they get through that, is I would send them an application. Um, Once they send it back, let's say the client does indeed pre-qualify, then I would send them to our underwriting team. So we have two types of programs. We have one that's a little bit more fast-paced, that's from 10 to 50,000, and then we have another one that goes up to 250,000. So the 250,000 one, the underwriter is going to have the loan for a week or two before they make a decision on approval. The smaller loan from 10 to 50,000 is a 48-hour approval process. And then from there, it's going to depend a lot on the small business owner, how responsive they are to the underwriter. But if they're pretty responsive, and depending on what they need the money for or the use of proceeds, it could be as quick as 3 weeks to a month. Of course, then, if the client takes a couple weeks to get, everything that's needed, then, it could take 2 months or more. So, with a lot of teamwork, I think it would be a month, a month and a half at the most, sometimes even as quick as 3 weeks. The fast-paced program is going to definitely be 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, that's great. That's all good information to kind of know, and it's good to set the expectations, certainly with the lender. So, I mean, you've talked on and off about here that obviously SBDC and CDC Small Business Finance have a really long relationship. So, I mean, how does working with SBDC help your clients as they're going through that loan process? You've mentioned it on and off, but maybe even an example that would be, of how that's really helped the client as well as you processing that application.
Absolutely. I have a great example. Sean, which is one of your financial advisors, he's just awesome. And what I love about him is he really takes the time with the client, and he's also very persistent. So, I know he brought a client to me, and when I reviewed him, I was not able to move him forward. I did talk to Sean and the client and let them know kind of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I need from them, to kind of changes that they needed to make on credit, reserves, those such items. And Sean actually worked with the client, and in about 6 to 8 months after our initial conversation, he came back and all the boxes were checked. And so your small business advisor, Sean, was able to really prep the client to get pre-approved, approved, and funded. And then the client came back during COVID and also got some more funding for relief money for COVID. So that's a great example of just how I love that we can have work together, and ultimately get the client to their goal. He was a great client. He just didn't have quite everything that he needed. And Sean, took the time that was needed. I commend Sean. He didn't give up on him. And you know what? It's not the first one. I have a lot of your small business advisors that do the same thing, and they bring them back even a year later. So yeah, I love it.
Well, that's fantastic. We do absolutely love working with CDC Small Business Finance, and I know our that relationship you have with our business advisors is great. So why don't we wrap up with just 2 tips that you would give to a small business owner, just some quick hit tips for them as they're looking to obtain financing.
Yeah, I think my 2 biggest tips. My first one would be prepared. So if they haven't already come to you, hopefully they have. Um, you know, we definitely, as a lender, a lot of our relationship is about trust, right? So that's kind of where credit comes in. But even before we look at your credit, um, we want to know, one, that you're prepared, and I think that's one of the most important things, and two, that you're honest. So what I mean by prepared is, if a client comes to me and I start asking my initial questions to get to know him and his business, and I ask, hey, Joe, what is the loan amount that you're looking for, and what do you need it for? And if his answer is, Miriam, how much do you have? Like, how much would you lend me? Are you gonna lend me 500,000? I want 500,000. And he asked me my max, and I say 250. He's like, that's how much I want. And I say, okay, what do you need it for? And he's like, well, I don't know. I was thinking about maybe hiring somebody, maybe not. And in other words, he has no idea how much he needs and what he needs it for. And that, I would say, is not a good foundation for trust with the lender. So definitely, when you come and you talk to me, be prepared. So, go to creditkarma.com, know what your credit score is so you have an idea of it. And when you come to me, definitely know how much money you need and what you need the money for. That would be my first piece of advice. And my second piece of advice is be, 100% transparent and honest. We run not just your credit, but so many other reports. I mean, we have found out people had a judgment 20 years ago, 25 years ago. I mean, we find everything out, and you may not even remember about that judgment, but when the time comes to explain it, or if you had a bankruptcy or whatever it might be, just be honest with your lender, because I will find out, and sometimes people come back. Like, for example, I had a client that was honest with me right up front and said, hey, I have X, Y, and Z going on. And I said, you know what, I can't help you, but I know a partner and alternative lender that can. And when that time frame is over and you can come back and get lending with us, why don't you do that? And that client did that, and then later came back and refinanced and got a larger loan amount. But the point is, just be honest. I'm here to help. I have 16 plus years of experience, and I'm not the underwriter, so I'm not the final piece. I'm just gonna hopefully prepare you to look wonderful for the underwriters, to get the highest chance of approval and funding that I can get for you. But if you're not a fit, maybe you'll be a fit later, or I certainly know a lot of people that could possibly fit you now too. So again, to point that out again, is one, know when you're talking to a lender, and how much money you need, what your credit score is. So and then also be 100% transparent.
That's fantastic. I've really enjoyed our conversation, Miriam. And like I said, SBDC and CDC Small Business Finance, we've worked for a very long time together here in the San Diego market, and San Diego and Imperial, to help small businesses grow. So it's been a pleasure. Again, we've been speaking with Miriam Baltys from CDC Small Business Finance as part of our Meet the Lender series. And so thank you very much, Miriam.
Thanks, Danny.